I want to talk about my mum, Dinah Murray, a bit. How she got into thinking about autism and what she did with it in her life. So she completed a PhD on the relationship between language and interests when I was quite young. And soon after she'd finished the PhD, a fellow linguist in the same department, Robin Carsten, lent her a book, Autism Explaining the Enigma by Uta Frith. And Dinah read it and thought, well, she really hasn't explained the enigma at all, but I think I can. So she applied her theory about the relationship between interests and attention and thinking, and thought, what if autistic people have a style of allocating attention which means that it is applied to a smaller number of things at a time. So we sort of enter attention tunnels, where we're likely to miss anything outside of that tunnel and experience whatever is in it quite intensely and find it difficult to shift focus and things. She worked out a theory of how this could explain autism with her friend and colleague Mike Glesser. And they called it monotropism. The term's coined by a family friend, Jeanette Bursky, but it sort of means a single turning, like one direction. It's maybe a slightly simplistic term, but then lots of scientific terms don't really fit their original etymology. It's not really that autistic people can only focus on one thing at a time, but we struggle to focus on as many things or distribute our attention between as many things as the average person. So at this time, Dinah only really had academic writing about autism to go on. She wasn't working as an academic psychologist, and her best idea for how to test her theory, whether it held up in practice, was to meet autistic people. So she visited various schools and institutions where autistic people were, talked to the staff, talked to the students and residents as appropriate. Got the sense that, yeah, she seemed to be on the right lines. It does seem to fit. She presented at the Durham Conference on Autism, which used to be the UK's main autism research conference for quite a long time, annually. She presented in, I think, 92, 93, several other years in the 1990s. And, you know, ran her ideas by professional autism researchers and so on as well. And generally, the upshot was that monotropism seems to describe autistic people pretty well. But a side effect of this was that Dinah abandoned the book that she had been asked to write based on her PhD thesis, having written a chapter for it called Holy Fools and Bullshit Artists, describing the application of her theory to autistic people, and kind of just disappeared down a rabbit hole for the next 30 odd years, of meeting lots of autistic people, making friends with them, working with them. She was a support worker for many years, working mainly but not exclusively with autistic people. At one point, she noticed that a lot of the people that she met through her work seemed to have been badly harmed by antipsychotic medication prescribed to them even though they were not psychotic. It's sometimes described as a chemical cosh. It made them easier to deal with for staff who had no idea what was going on for them. So, being quite monotropic herself, she went off and learned enough about neuroscience and pharmacology to understand what was going on, wrote a detailed paper summarising the existing research called Potions, Pills and People with Learning Disabilities, presented it at Parliament, got a letter published in, I think, the BMJ, and I think helped to keep that from happening quite as much as it used to. It is still a problem that people who really shouldn't be getting prescribed antipsychotics do, but less so than it used to be. So she was meeting autistic people. She met Wen Lawson in the late 90s, and they realised that they'd arrived at more or less the same theory of autism. Wen at that time had written at least one book about their experiences as an autistic person. I think Life Behind Glass was one of the first books I read about autism. After that, they worked together for many years. They published together with Mike Lesser in 2005, Attention, Monotropism and the Diagnostic Criteria for Autism, which clearly explained how monotropism accounts for all of the established features of autism. Which I think at the time she kind of thought, like, oh, that's it, we've done it. We've shown that, unlike the dominant theories of autism, the theory of mind or the executive dysfunction or the weak central coherence theories, here was a theory that actually accounted for like the whole thing. But it didn't make as much of an impact as she hoped, probably because none of the authors were professional psychologists at that time. They were all autistic, although Dinah was just starting to come round to the idea that she was autistic herself at that time. So she presented at Autscape in 2005, and there she was self-describing as autistic, but saying, I don't always do this. So that's the same year that the paper came out. And in the paper, only one of the authors identified themselves as autistic, but Mike clearly was too. So she was part of Autscape from the beginning, pretty much. And she was very invested in linking autistic people up and getting them into the room where conversations were about autism were happening and ensuring that they were heard. So this was indirectly how the National Autistic Taskforce came about. She pulled together a panel of autistic advisors on the National Autism Project, and pretty much made sure that they were taken as seriously as the other experts, although there was this weird division where there was the expert group and the autistic group, and almost everyone in the autistic group had PhDs. As well as usually immense practical experience and experience of socially meeting autistic people. So that was pretty much the work of her life, at least the last 30 years of her life, was making connections between people and helping autistic people to be listened to and to realise their potential. As part of the National Autism Project, she wrote an article for the Future I'd Like to See series, titled Liberating Potential, in which she wrote, "There is potential for extraordinary, atypical levels of productiveness, resourcefulness and creativity in many autistic people when they are pursuing concerns close to their heart." She went on to say, "However, there is also an opposite extreme to that person on a mission superdrive, one of subjective powerless and incapacity to think or act effectively." So she was very invested in helping autistic people to avoid the latter and pursue the former, to pursue the things that we're interested in, make use of our passions and our talents. So that's what the Founders Awards is all about. Thanks.